Tom's agreed to meet his brother, Dan, at their favorite Greasy Spoon for lunch. Dan also works downtown. Their offices aren't far apart. When Dan called earlier this morning, he sounded worried. Tom's been keeping him pretty much in the dark. Suddenly, Tom felt guilty for not staying in better touch. He also feels the need to talk to someone he could trust. And right now, it feels like his little brother is the only person who fits that description. When Tom gets to the restaurant, he finds a table in the back corner and waits for his brother. When Dan arrives, Tom waves him over. "Hey," Dan says, "you don't look so great." There's concern in his eyes. "Yeah, well," Tom says, looking up at his brother. "Have a seat." "What's going on?" Dan asks, sitting down. "I haven't heard from you in the last couple of days. How's Karen?" Tom says she's doing okay, but his distress must be coming across loud and clear. Dan could always read him pretty well. "So what are you not telling me, Tom?" Dan says, leaning towards him. "What the fuck is going on?" Tom takes a deep breath and leans in closer, pausing while the waiter drops a couple of menus on their table and moves out of earshot. Then he tells Dan everything about the dead man, the gloves, the call from the burner phone. Dan looks back at him in disbelief. This doesn't make any sense. What would Karen be doing there? And who in the hell would be calling Karen on a burner phone? "We don't know," Tom says, "but it made the police suspicious." "No kidding," Dan says. "So what do you think Karen was up to that night?" Dan looks worried. "I don't know," Tom says and shifts his eyes away. She still says she doesn't remember. Tom wonders if Dan can sense his own doubt. There's a long silence between them, and then Tom says, "Maybe we should order." "Sure." As they review the menu, Tom tries to decide whether to tell Dan the rest, that he's starting to wonder about Karen's past, that she might be hiding something from him. What if he's wrong? But first, there's something else he needs to talk to Dan about. The waiter takes the order and Tom sets the menu aside. The police are asking questions about me. "About you? What the hell are you talking about?" Dan asks. He looks genuinely freaked out now, as if he's afraid of what he's going to hear next. Tom leans in closer to his brother and lowers his voice further. "They're asking where I was at the time of Karen's accident, at the time of the murder." There's a long, pregnant pause while Dan stares at him. "Why in the hell would they be asking you that?" Dan asks. Tom swallows. "I never told you this, but you know that neighbor of ours, Bridget, who lives across the street? I think you've met her." "Yeah, sure, what about her?" Tom looks down at the table, ashamed of what he's about to admit. "I was involved with her before I met Karen." Dan says rather sharply, "Isn't she married?" "Yes, but..." He meets Dan's eyes briefly, then shifts his gaze away. "She misled me. She said her marriage was already over, that they were separating, but she was lying." Bridget had tricked him into an affair. He'd only realized it when Bob invited himself over for a beer one evening. Obviously unaware of what was going on between Tom and his wife. It became clear that Bob had no idea that his marriage was in trouble, that she'd lied. Tom had been easy enough to manipulate. He felt an overwhelming attraction to her. There was something terribly exciting about Bridget, about her disregard for boundaries. She was his walk on the wild side. But as soon as Tom realized that she lied to him about the state of her marriage, he broke it off. As he expected, she didn't take it well. She coped, she sobbed, she screamed. He was afraid she might do something rash. Tell her husband about them. He'll slash his tires. But then she calmed down and agreed not to tell Bob. Shortly after that, Tom met Karen. When he became serious about her, he made Bridget promise not to tell Karen about what had happened between them. He was ashamed of sleeping with another man's wife, even though it was only because he'd been deceived. Allergies are terrible around here. He didn't know then that Bridget and Karen would become close friends. He'd watched it happen with deep dismay. He'd had a few uncomfortable moments. He didn't completely trust Bridget not to say something, but Bridget had kept her side of the bargain. For a long time, his only relationship with Bridget had been as a friend of Karen's, until she called that day. "So," Dan said slowly, "what are you trying to tell me, Tom? Are you sleeping with her again? Were you with her that night?" Their food arrives and they abruptly stop talking until they're alone again. Tom's feeling very uncomfortable with this conversation. He looks earnestly at his brother and says firmly, "No, I'm not sleeping with her. Like I said, it was over before I even met Karen. And Karen doesn't know about it. She thinks we're just neighbors. We agreed to keep it quiet." "Was that wise?" Dan asked. "In hindsight, no." "So why can't you tell the police where you were, Tom? Christ, please tell me you're not mixed up in anything." Dan looks distraught. Tom interrupts him. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not involved in this thing that Karen's tangled up in, whatever the hell it is. I promise you that." He hesitates, "But Bridget called me that day, the day of the accident, and asked me to meet her that evening. She wanted to talk to me about something. She said it was important." He runs his hands through his hair, "But she never showed up. I waited for over half an hour, and now the police want to know where I was. I told them I was just driving around for a while, trying to unwind because work is so stressful. I lied in front of Karen." "What a mess," Dan says. Tom nods. "Yeah, it is, isn't it? You have to tell the police the truth. And Karen is going to find out." Tom frowns unhappily. "I know." "So what did Bridget want to talk to you about?" Tom looks up uneasily at his brother and tells him about the dark-haired man snooping around the house that day and Bridget's suspicions about Karen's past. She says she saw some TV show, and what that man said made her think that maybe Karen disappeared from another life, and she's using an alias, Tom says. "Seriously?" Tom nods. "I know, it sounds ridiculous, right? But she told me she wanted to meet me that night and tell me in person because she thought if she tried to tell me over the phone, I'd just hang up on her." "Why would you?" Tom looks away. "She used to call me, and I'd hang up on her, but that was a long time ago." "So why didn't she show up then?" Tom looks Dan in the eye again. "She said her sister needed her. Her sister's always having a crisis." "Anyway, she got this idea in her head now about how little we know about Karen's past, how she has no relatives and so on." "Well, she's right about that," Dan says slowly, and I started to think about it. My God, Dan, what if Bridget's right? Da-da-da!